We've qualified for the World Cup. Go and compete. We'll prepare and we'll go and we'll do our best. We'll put them under pressure. The game is about being effective, being aggressive, winning the ball, getting on with the play. We'll put them under pressure.
Hello everybody and welcome to WTS 210. My name's Danny Murray.
And I am Graham Merrigan.
Alright. How are you, Graham Merrigan?
I'm not the better for the death of Jack Charlton.
It's a fair comment, man. That is a fair comment.
I've been, since the news broke on Saturday, I've just been looking at all the articles written about him, all the archive footage, the reel in the year stuff. Yeah. And it has me in a bundle. I seen a great article today on some County Louth newspaper website, and it documented it interviewed some man who owned a clay pigeon shooting range, and it's open since 1977 and it's still open to this day. But in 1993, he invited Jack and the Irish squad up for a bit of relaxation, and just did an interview about it and who won, how did Jack do, and blah blah blah. But the people involved in the clay pigeon place, they recorded the whole thing on an old camcorder for an hour and a half. Yeah. So the footage is there, and it's just so interesting. Like, you're watching that squad doing the clay pigeon shoot. A 21-year-old Roy Keane, who just signed for Man United, is on the clips and all. It's just deadly. But yeah. I'm good, but I'm very sad about the death of Jack Charlton.
Yeah, and so say all of us. I think it's one of those. I think it is. I think it's a very unique moment in terms of what a person dying who manages to unite Irish football fans, English football fans, and Leeds United fans. Just, you know what I mean? Like, it's a very, very weird kind of Venn diagram of football fans that have been, and I haven't seen anybody have a bad word really to say about him. It's
no,
and I think,
and sure, he was adored over here simply because he lifted a nation for 10 years.
In many ways, he almost made football acceptable again in Ireland. Do you know what I mean? Like, he made people believe in football over here. Like, whereas,
well, it's like I listened to Off the Ball there during the week, and who was it? Was it Mick McCarthy or Kevin Sheedy? One of them were being interviewed, and he was basically saying, going to the matches, the supporters were rugby fans and GAA fans, because we were doing so well. Everyone wanted a piece of it, and everyone was so jubilant, and they were just brilliant times.
Absolutely, and that's it. And I think, like, I don't know. I mean, like, look, I wasn't even 3 during Italia 90, so I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I've great memories of it. But USA 94 is some of my earliest footballing memories, and I can remember Ray Houghton scoring against Italy. As Paliuca, I think, was in there for that match, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
And I can remember loads of us going out onto the green in Laurel Avenue and practicing our tumbles after Ray Houghton. You know what I mean?
Ah, deadly. Yeah, that's a great memory.
But, like, and Jack Charlton, I think, will always be part of those kind of, for me, what are my earliest footballing memories, And,
yeah. Well, I was 6 at Italia 90, and I can remember where I was for every match.
There you go, yeah.
And I remember just seeing I remember watching the Ireland-Romania match in the Ramblers and being allowed in to watch it, the only kid allowed in to watch it.
Yeah.
And I remember for the Ireland-Italy match, I wanted to go to the Ramblers again, but I wasn't allowed. So I remember just thinking how amazing the scenes were for that Ireland and Romania match in the pub, that I
Yeah.
wanted to do that again, but obviously because I was too young or whatever, I wasn't allowed. But just fantastic times.
Absolutely, and like the stories that people have been sharing about the man, and the kind of, as you were saying, some of the clips of, people being chopping onions every time I've turned one on. I think.
Oh, stop the lights.
I can't. I think Second Captains put out.
I was just going to say.
With I can't remember the name of the composer. It's an Irish composer who's passed away as well, and they combined his music with kind of Jack Charlton in his own words, kind of thing, and it was just stunning, absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
If you haven't
Bump in your throat.
If you haven't listened to it, just go on to Second Captains, and I'm sure you'll find it. It's absolutely brilliant. Like, but yeah, Jack, shine on, and thanks for the football and glory. I'm sure there's not a single Irish fan who won't appreciate it forever. Like, but
Who do we have on this week, Dan?
it's a good question, Mero. Very good question. And we've just wrapped up recording with him, and it was absolutely brilliant. One of those conversations that you kind of get lost in, and we don't realise how quickly we've kind of approached the, not necessarily time limit, we don't really have time limits, but we just, we don't want to take the piss with guests and kind of presume that they'll sit here talk to us for 4 hours, the way me and Mero was shy down for 4 hours. But
and the way I go with the last 10 minutes, but I need to ask this and I need to ask that.
Exactly, yeah. But in the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement and the momentum that grew behind that and everything else, there's been so many things that have happened over the last couple of weeks and, well, now months, I suppose. But one of the brilliant things that's happened from an Irish perspective was the creation of a social media page called Black and Irish. And we're going to speak to one of the founders of that now. So, Femi Bankole, coming up on WTS Pod. So this week, delighted to say, we're joined by Femi Bankole, who is one of the founders of a brilliant Instagram page that's been kind of taking Ireland by storm in many ways. And it's called Black and Irish. Femi, thanks, Mel, for coming onto the podcast. First of all, man, really appreciate it.
Not a bother. Thanks for having me. Delighted to be on one of these.
Thanks so much, man.
Tell us a little bit about the Black and Irish page, first of all. I'm sure like most people know about it at this point, but just for anyone who doesn't know about it.
Yeah, so it's an Instagram page that myself and the lads started off. It's been only 6 weeks. It feels like an absolute lifetime ago, but it's just been 6 weeks. So it's an Instagram page that we set up as a result of the George Floyd protests a lifetime ago. Whereas we'd gotten I attended the protest and we received a lot of backlash online. We, as in people of Ireland, over attend a protest, be this is an American problem. This doesn't happen in Ireland. Why are you protesting, etc., etc. And me, the lads, jumped on a call. We're just chatting. I think Bonnie, one of our co-founders, he lives in England. And he's like, oh, lads, should I go to the protest? And I was like, oh, I don't know, man. Received a load of backlash over here, over it. People think there's no racism in Ireland. And we had a laugh about it. We were like, do you know what? This is Leon's idea. It's let's make an Instagram page where we can talk about racism in Ireland. And, we can put a face to racism and have people, know that there's a Black and Irish community in Ireland. People share their stories, put a face to racism.
How many followers have you got now?
Or something like that, which is...
Oh my God, after 6 weeks?
Yeah, is utterly ridiculous. I don't know. I think I tried piece together. I was like, how did we get here? I think, what was it? I think in the first couple of days, obviously Bonnie is a TikTok star, so he'd have 3,000 or 4,000 followers on his Instagram, and it's so weird. Guys, I am a social media, I have no clue, but I have 100 followers, right? And so the lads, anyways, we shared out our page. She got 1,000 followers, also all our mates. And then I think there was a drag queen. Her name's Via the Lady, and she does a little Witchy Wednesdays at George, and she just loved what we did, and she's like, oh my God, I love you guys. I want to message all my mates to share these. she messaged a load of our mates, and I think like Brent Courtney, he's like a designer kind of thing.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
shared
yeah.
our page. Yeah, you know Brent Courtney. And then he was like, "Oh, I'll get Laura Whitmore to share your page." And it just snowballs. It was just like all these people each other to share our page. And we were like, what the heck is going on? It was like, this is crazy. So loads of people shared our page. But I don't think it was just, people sharing our page. I think it was like, really being a bit serious. It was like, it was actually like, people coming onto our page, reading the stories that we're posting, and that really resonated with people, and that kind of like pushed them to want to share the page. If you
What were the stories that you were sharing? Was it just of Irish black people?
Yeah, it was just like, this is Tom. I think what was the name of the first one? I think it was Brian James. Who was one of the first ones to share? And he's like, hi, I'm Brian James or whatever. I grew up in this part in Ireland, or I was born in this part of Ireland. These are my racial experiences growing up in Ireland, and this is my hope for Ireland for the future. So that's kind of like the template per se of of the stories we give out. So it's very important in the sense that, okay, listen, lads, we've had racial experience in your country, right under your nose. A lot of people are saying it doesn't exist here. Well, it's like, well, it does, and here it is. And here's my story, and here's John's story, and here's Jim's story, there's Sarah's story. If you're going onto the page and seeing all these things and all these different stories, all of them with like, some sort of a trend, you're like, oh, like, your human side comes out, you become all empathetic. You're like, oh crap. Like, like, I don't know if we can swear or not.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
I was like, oh shit. I'm like, you won't stop me swearing. And there's no way you go on and you read those stories just as a human being that you don't start becoming empathetic. And it kind of like, gets you woke to the situation. And you're like, oh, okay, maybe I do need to change my way of thinking. Maybe I do need to be more aware of what's going on. And, that in our eyes is a very, very good starting point in combating racism or discrimination.
Yeah, I think one of the things as well that kind of jumped out to me when I kind of first started following was the stories of people who are living obviously through all this now, but you guys then have started to kind of sprinkle it with historical figures as well, and some of the stories from kind of, like obviously just with Jack Charlton passing away, obviously Paul McGrath kind of came to mind there, but there's been ones that have been littered throughout history that you guys have been dropping in.
Yeah, do you know what? We started learning about our history because we were never taught in school or whatever. So like you'd be shocked about like what you discover when you go out, like search for the information. So we thought we'd have a Irish History Week because in my head I'll put my hands about it, like oh yeah, black people have only been in Ireland since like first of all I was like since the 2000s because that's when I moved here, and I was like the mass emigration of mostly Africans. But then you go back to a bit further, in the 1960s, and you think of like the Windrush generation, flocking over to the UK. But if you think about it, if these lads are flocking over to the UK, of course you're going to have, people flocking from the UK to Ireland as well, because, that's how emigration works. So I was like, oh yeah, then you go to the 60s, you'd obviously have like people of Caribbean descent come to Ireland. But that still isn't, it goes back like hundreds and hundreds of years. I thought it was very interesting that we had Daniel Connell, which we all learn about at secondary school, primary school. But he was an abolitionist, and he really campaigned against slavery in Ireland and in America. But he also had like Frederick Douglass, who was like, American slave. And, they went around Ireland trying to bring, awareness to the issue of slavery and, and campaigning to abolish slavery. So it just goes to show, like, I'm sure, if you went back hundreds and hundreds of years, we'll find some more fascinating things. So I think, we were trying to, again, like, it kind of, what we're trying to do there is, if you think about it, right? So if you're in school as a black person, right, and you only learn about all these white historical figures, subconsciously, like, it starts to affect you, starts to affect your way of thinking, starts to affect your diversity of thought.
When you're in school?
Yeah, when you're in school, yeah, just as a black person, right?
Okay.
If you're like, I'm not being represented in what I see, okay? Especially at that young age when you're like, you're very impressionable.
Yeah.
If you're looking on TV, on Irish TV, it's like, I'm not being represented in what I see. So the point I'm trying to make there is in terms of like the history books. It's like we're not taught that back in school. So we're just like, oh, well, like black people just didn't exist in a positive way in the history of Ireland or in history at all. Whereas, if that is shown to you, it's like, even me right now, it's like, oh my God, like, if someone's there saying to me, oh, black people just out in Ireland, like, to meet you off the dole or whatever. It's like, actually, no, we've actually contributed to the history of this country.
Yeah.
Do you kind of get what I mean? So, that for me is where the history piece is very, very important.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that, because obviously over the last couple of years, kind of I've become more aware of kind of like the whole white privilege thing, and kind of I might have come from a working class area and a working class background, but I still had so many advantages that other people wouldn't have, that you wouldn't think of when you're a kid necessarily. But then you're given the context there of something as simple as, history in school, and whereas I sitting there, I'm kind of going, oh yeah, Michael Collins, oh yeah, I'm a Devil Era, oh yeah, and it's like little bits of relatable stuff there. You'd never put those bits, so it's really important that from a young age, kids are able to see that. Like it's huge, really, but something that people just don't think about.
Yeah, like 100%, and it's something that even like our education ministers or the people actually make curriculum haven't thought about. And it's like it's really like accumulation of all these like subconscious effects of what these things have on your development. I think we had one girl on live. We have these weekly lives on Instagram, like half an hour, where we discuss like different topics. And we had Amanda Ade on, and she spearheaded the protests in Dublin. And we were talking about representation of black people in the media, right? And I find this super interesting. And the point I'm trying to get across here is like having that relatable bit as a black person growing up. Okay, so right now, for example, I'm in my late 20s, like nearly 27, right? So I know I've grown up, and I know it's like, okay, if I see some shite on the TV that doesn't adhere to my values, I just won't do it. Or if I see different things, different ways of people being represented in the media, I know to like research things, I know to take things with a pinch of salt, right? But if you're in their key development, I can't speak.
Only Merrow that does that.
Yeah, it's usually me. Cul-de-sac.
Cul-de-sac is the most famous one, yeah.
I won't say that word, but you know the word I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
If you're in those stages, between like, 10 and 21, when you're really, really impressionable, and, all you're seeing in media and all the things that you consume, whether it's social media, whether it's film, TV, whatever, all you're seeing is black people as, roadmen, gangsters, wearing tracksuits, being lazy, being gangs, being thugs. You subconsciously, whether you like it or not, start to play into those stereotypes. And it's horrible. Like, I see it right in front of my very eyes. I have a 17-year-old brother and a 15-year-old brother. All they want to do is, chill with their mates in like large groups and congregate for like no reason. All they want for Christmas is like the Air Max 97s and tracksuits and do-rags. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why do you want that? It's like, oh, because it's cool. But it's cool because all the music that they listen to, all the people that they see, that's the cool thing that they're doing. And that's kind of like when we go to buy, we want like diversification in media. We want better representation of black people in media across all aspects so that we're not forced to play into a specific stereotype.
Yeah, but so when you were in school and you were consciously or subconsciously, you were consciously recognizing that, oh my God, I'm not being represented by the lessons I'm being taught. So, like, would you have went to a teacher and would you have said to the teacher, is there like, where am I being represented here? Or was it a case of a reflection when you left school and you're going, geez, there's no black people in Irish history. What's going on? Is that how your experience was?
Yeah, if I'm being very honest, I'm not going to give myself credit to be like, at a young age, I was woke to this. I just thought, oh, this is school. This is what I'm meant to learn. This is society. This is where I'm supposed to act. It's only upon reflection that I'm like, oh yeah, like, why were we not taught by these things It's only like, how on earth can you teach us by Daniel Connell in school and not talk by Frederick Douglass?
100%. Yeah, of course, 100%. It's like there was a podcast maybe 2 years ago Blind Boy did with Spike Lee, and he was telling him about Frederick, and Spike Lee was just like, I think Spike Lee might have heard of him, but Blind Boy kind of educated him on him. So then Blind Boy gave him a book on him, and now there was talk at that point in that conversation that Spike Lee was possibly going to do a biopic on him because he found him so interesting. So it's like, yeah, you're being told about Daniel O'Connell and what he done, but why aren't you being told about the slavery part? Now, do you like that is a huge missed opportunity, okay? And do you think the educators who are coming up with the curriculum, do you think they are purposely leaving that out, or is it just a mishap, or do you think that they're racist? Like,
yeah, to be fair, I always like to see the very best in people. Maybe to a fault. And I don't like to. I like to think that like people who are like outright racist, like I hate black people specifically because of the color of their skin. There's like little to none of them in the world. Okay, so I don't think that they're doing it on purpose, or I think it's more that like, especially like large institutions such that people are making a curriculum or like the education system. It's like, oh well, this is the way things have always been done. Why would we change it? I think it'll be very, very unfair to be like they're going out of their way to wipe people history.
Yeah.
Like, that's getting to conspiracy theories.
Well, I suppose as well. In another sense, it's like the Minister for Health the other day. He posted a photograph. Having he was conducting a meeting with the maternity hospital, and there was 8 individuals in the photograph and 1 female about a maternity hospital. Like 6 or 7 men going to happens to a woman in a maternity hospital. So it's probably kind of like along the same line in terms of the curriculum. It's like you said, why would we change it? There's no reason to change it, and then you're kind of going, well, it's like in the last, like you said, in 2000, there was a lot of diversity in Ireland, a lot of I've seen it in my own school. We had Palestinian guys in my class, we had Nigerian guys and girls in our class, but we didn't see the education kind of change, and not like, I mean, it's not going to change overnight, particularly in the year 2001 or 2002 when there was a lot of immigrants coming into Ireland, kind of not for the first time, but certainly there was a lot more than previously. So would you be hopeful that there is room for that for the next generation of Black Irish people?
Absolutely. And you know what? I think to kind of like go back to your point, being like, are they just going to turn around and change the curriculum and improve things? If I'm saying that, people don't like things to change, like it's just the way we've always done it, what I would then expect, and this kind of goes back to my argument around representation everywhere. So if you had more Black teachers, if you had more Black people actually like, being teachers and becoming educators, then they can have an influence on what goes into the curriculum. But what kind of I've discovered is, for example, so with this large influx of immigrants that come in like the early 2000s, I'm Nigerian, right? Nigerians are renowned educators, okay? A large proportion of Nigerians who have come over here would have been teachers back home. But obviously, if they're teachers back home and they're like, oh, I would like to be a teacher in Ireland, first roadblock you have is you can't be a teacher unless you can speak Irish. And that already ostracizes and, means that like you can't have diversity in education. We've had 20 years. Like how are we supposed to diversify and imprint, okay, we need to teach the kids by different code. And it's not just even by Black people only. It's by just all minorities. And like, if you look at the UK, for example, they've had like an influx of like, obviously they're like decades ahead of us in that sense. But they had an influx of immigrants. The immigrants assimilated into society. They wouldn't have a ridiculous requirements such as you have to speak Irish to. Even I do understand the reason behind it, but I don't think it should be an obstacle to become an educator.
Yeah.
So in the UK, sorry, go ahead, Danny.
No, I was just going to say I'm 100% with you on that. I think it's one of those weird things where, like, don't get me wrong, I understand the heritage, I understand all that sort of stuff, but I don't think being able to speak Irish should be there's no reason for it to be a roadblock. If somebody is qualified to do all the rest of it because they haven't got a couple of focal, shouldn't stop them from being in a classroom. Like,
yeah, well, I think they should concentrate on the curriculum for the Irish language in schools in the first place, to be demanding, or to not to be demanding, but to have it has that other criteria. I'd love to be able to speak Irish, but I don't think it's taught well in school. Just based on my experience, there's people out there that are Gaeilgeoirs and they did it. So sometimes it begs the question, Jesus, if they did it, why can't I do it?
Yeah, and like if you really think further into it as well, like obviously, like if you're studying to be a maths teacher or a physics teacher or whatever the heck it is, like obviously you don't need Irish to be able to do that. Like it makes sense if you're going to be like, maybe like a primary school teacher where they have to teach all subjects, or you're going to like teach.
I didn't know it was the criteria for a secondary school teacher. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's just because I was we were like speaking. We had someone on our live a couple of weeks back, and he's a teacher. He trained to be a teacher in Ireland, and his name's Tyke, and he's currently now a teacher in the UK. So we were able to get like loads of like differences in like how the UK do things and how Ireland do things, and it was like really like fascinating stuff.
And you were mentioning there earlier, Femi, about kind of representation in media and that kind of thing. And as you were saying that, I was kind of in my head, I was trying to rack my brains, and it could be me being ignorant, or it could just be kind of a damning situation where there aren't many kind of black people or even people from different backgrounds, whether they be Middle Eastern or whatever. But I'm struggling to think of any commentators in Irish society who are regular contributors to RTE News or TV3 News or whatever. I know over the last week or so I've kind of seen news articles about kind of Erica Cody because of the stuff that happened, but I know that's a whole different thing, like, but I've seen Erica's name come up a little bit lately. Emma DeBeardy, I think, had stuff recently as well, but like overall I don't think there is a voice out there that's really representative.
No, as again, like I'm the same as you. Like I wouldn't. Not that I wouldn't pay attention, but hasn't come across my radar. I'm sure if there was much diversity in like the Irish media as such, like we definitely hear about it. But I think we're struggling in that sense in Ireland, and I think we have a long way to go.
Yeah.
To fixing that situation.
Yeah, I think so.
When you were in school, Femi, did you experience any racism?
Yeah, of course I did. Like quite a lot of times. And do you know what? So again, I was saying to you, I'm like quite a positive person, and it's just like my personality. And I think initially when we started this page, or this platform, people were sharing their stories. And it's like one of the days, and I was like, oh, like what racial things have happened to me or whatever. I was like, oh, I can't remember. And he's like, what's going on? Like I know those things happened to me, but it just turns out that like I just suppressed all my memories by me being such like a positive person, whatever. It's like when anything bad happens to me, I just like, I just ignore it. It's like, it was hilarious actually. One of my mates, what was it? Like a month ago, we were chatting. He was like, do you not remember what happened to you like 6 months ago? And I was like, what are you talking about? So me and two of the lads were out on a night out. So two of the lads are white, right? And we were on Dawson Street. We're going into one of the bars there in the line. Like obviously, like we were like absolutely locked, which is obviously totally acceptable, right? And we're standing in line trying to get into this bar, and this fellow like walks in front of us and screams at me like blacks to the end of the bar. And
what?
The lads were going mad. Yeah, in Dublin, Dawson Street, right? The lads were going mad. Like I had to be the one to like diffuse and calm the situation. But then like I swear to you, right? my mate had to like remind me of the situation, like not just like remind me. I was like, he was like, oh wait, what? I think I have memories. Like you had to like, fully like describe it out for me to like remember it. And I was like, oh my god, like I need to start dealing with these issues rather than like like normalizing, because the issue is like this is normal. Oh yeah, it's normal for someone to make like a horrible comment to me. Do you kind of know what I'm saying? So it's like it's normal that like, oh yeah, that just happened the other day and I just totally forgotten about it. Do you kind of get what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like, Femi, I'm a wheelchair user, so I would experience discrimination all the time. So, and I completely relate to what you're saying there, because it's a situation where, like, I've often said to Danny and friends and family that if I'm driving to the supermarket and I see somebody in a wheelchair spot that they shouldn't be, like, I'm thinking about that when I get into the car at home and I'm on the drive to the supermarket, and I'm thinking, am I going to have to face a challenge here? Am I in the mood for an argument? Am I, and it happens so many times that, like, you get fed up then coming home and telling your dad or telling your mom, what's wrong with you? Oh, nothing, that's grand. And then the next time you might say, you might be in a mood for a row or a confrontation. You might say, look, you're actually parking there and you shouldn't be. And you get into, like, I always say to people that I'm driving 10 years and I would say I have to approach somebody, let's say 2-3 times a month. Okay. Not one person that I've ever approached has ever apologized. They're embarrassed. They've never apologized. They're embarrassed. But they always put their head down and they always say, like, oh, it was only going to be 5 minutes. The point I know I'm waffling now, but the point I'm trying to make to you, throughout the whole Black Lives Matter situation, and when you're trying to, when like Danny was saying there about white privilege, I was trying to explain to friends my situation, being a wheelchair user, is comparable to black people's situation. And I was basically saying, you will never experience that because you have white privilege. Yeah. You will never experience driving in your car and thinking on your way to the supermarket, am I going to have a row here? No, you're like 100%. You put it at the back of your mind, like you go out with your friends on a Saturday night, like you might be thinking as you're getting ready, oh my God, am I going to experience anything tonight? Because I do. That's how I take. Like if I'm ready to go into the city centre, I'm kind of going, okay, which pubs are going to turn me, refuse me? Which nightclubs are going to say, sorry, no wheelchairs tonight? Because that happens.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the point. I think like the white privilege is trying to get across, because it's like, I can say that, like I empathize with you, and I understand how you're feeling, or I understand what you're going through, but I don't. Like I can say I do, but I don't. It goes back to the point where it's like, oh, that was horrible that someone parked in that space or whatever, and it's put you at a disadvantage to like accessing this venue. But like you're saying, like it's deeper now. You're thinking about that all the way to and from the supermarket. It's going to affect the rest of your day. Whereas if I'm empathizing with you, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry that happened to you for like 5 minutes, and there it's done.
There it's done. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. Because I had a couple of conversations over the last 4 or 5 weeks in trying to describe the correlation between my situation and I was seeking empathy from people that didn't have empathy for the Black Lives Matter situation. And I'm like, I'd be kind of saying to people, will you respect me? Yeah. I have this happens to me. If I'm going to the supermarket and then from the supermarket I'm going to the pictures, I have to think on the drive to the supermarket and on the drive to the pictures, I have to think, am I going to get a confrontation with somebody over parking in a disability spot? And that's only one little thing. But like you said, I might tell somebody about that experience and they'll show instant empathy about it. But like they can forget about it, whereas I have to, and you have to live with these things. And it's kind of like, but is it the same? It's like, of course it's the same. Like, you don't have to experience anything. You don't have to experience about worrying about a disability parking spot. You don't have to worry about the color of your skin. And I was saying basically, minorities, when they enter a room, they are judged based on their minority. You're not judged on your minority, and you'll never be judged because you're not a minority. So that's white privilege.
Exactly. It goes with you, wherever you go, whatever you do, you will still be like, in a wheelchair. Again, wherever I go, wherever I do, if I'm applying for a job, whatever, like, I can't help it. I'll still be black and preconceived, biases and, prejudice and subconscious, like, fascinating stuff that comes with that.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
what we're trying to make people aware of. Like, check bias.
And the difference is that black people are dying because of their colour. I'm not dying because I'm a wheelchair user.
Thankfully.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what I mean? Like, it's just trying to get people to understand and educate them, and people have to be open-minded and being educated. Like, human beings are constantly learning, so don't be afraid to be open to that learning. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, 100%.
Femi, when because at the start you kind of mentioned that, the protests in America kind of is what sparked kind of you and the guys setting up the page. But as you were kind of watching it on and watching the events unfold in America, like, the development since then, how have they made you feel? Do you think the situation has got better? Do you think it's got worse? Has it stayed more or less the same, but just people are kind of talking about it? What are your feelings on how things are going?
I think my feelings are in two stages, right? So initially when the whole thing kicked off, I think it was a good sustained month, whereas, it was forefront of people's minds, forefront of the media, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, all the names I would constantly mention, justice, this and that. And when it initially happened, I was like, we've seen this before. It was literally 2 weeks before there was your man, Ahmaud Arbery, who was like, hunted down when he was going for a jog and shot, right? There was that lad. And literally like 2 weeks later, George Floyd happened and your man's name was never, like, have you heard his name since? No. So the whole, Breonna Taylor and George Floyd things, I was like a bit apprehensive about it. I was like, oh, here we go again. But, it was sustained and it sparked something. But, in the last 3-4 weeks, have you heard anything else? Breonna Taylor's killers still not being arrested. But there's rumors that obviously, like, the guys who the police officers who killed George Floyd, I'm pretty sure I was reading somewhere today that they're being arrested or being afforded bail or something like that. Like, nothing is going to change in that sense. As in, like, we've seen it all before, and it's like there's there's nothing's going to change. Like, but the only thing that I am grateful for is that conversations like this happen, and it's organizations or platforms like ours have spun up. There's loads of other things that have like started. So it's a spark, and we're just hoping that we can use that spark, that sustained spark, and turn it into some sort of massive flame, and keep it going. But it will be very, 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 very different. Like, I'll give you examples. Like, we'll be doing our lives in the first couple of weeks. We go live twice a week, and we're talking and discussing topics. And we were getting loads and loads of engagement, loads of people viewing them. And over the last 3 weeks, whatever, everything's still exact same, but it's just all died down. Not that no one cares anymore, but it's like, oh yeah, we've just moved on to the next thing. And that unfortunately is human nature as such, but that's where
that's a social media age, is it, Femi?
Yeah, it's a social media age, and it's also like there's something that I'm always very conscious of, and that's an echo chamber, right? So an echo chamber, it's like I'm surrounded with like-minded people because they're my friends. So whatever I see in my news feed, it's like, oh yeah, I'm seeing loads of things by racism, I'm seeing loads of things by whatever, but that doesn't actually represent what's actually happening in the real world. And that's where social media is probably detrimental to movements like this, or detriment. Yeah, do you know what I mean? So it's a difficult one to balance and manage.
It is, and it's crazy, and it's one of those things kind of like we've touched on it in the podcast before, and we've talked to people about before, that whole thing of on social media, on Facebook and all that, so many people get their news and get updates from just their social media platforms now, and because of that, all they're seeing is it's that confirmation bias it just keeps coming to them because, in my opinion, blue is the best colour in the world, and therefore all the news feed I have is just other people who are like, man, blue looks great, blue is the best colour ever, and I'm like, it is,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing, and every so often I like to dip into two places, more so kind of just not necessarily to take their opinions on board, but more so just to see what kind of things people are saying. And those two places are the Daily Mail comments, which are fucking bonkers, to be honest with you, and then dipping into the MAGA people on Twitter. And I'm
Why would
one.
you do that to yourself?
Man.
So the reason I do part of it is for entertainment, right? Because I'll give you an example. On the Daily Mail's comment section, it was around the whole D-Day anniversary. They had just a big article about how Union Jack flags were being made in China and shipped back to Britain. And one of the comments on it was from someone, and it said, "My grandfather didn't fight and die in 2 world wars for Union Jacks to be made in China." And I'm like, hang on. He fought and died in 2 world wars. Like, what? You know what I mean? Just people just, like, the MAGA people then, you're just seeing.
It's outrageous.
Like, I don't understand that. And they're getting, like, a couple of weeks ago, NASCAR banned the Confederate flag from their events. Now, NASCAR is probably the whitest sport on earth. Like, it's just insanely white, like. And if they're starting to move towards banning things that can be symbolized as, yeah, there's definitely a kind of racist history involved with this. But the outrage from some of the people, and they're not justifying it. They're literally just saying, I like that flag because it's history and I want it there. And it's like, yeah, but can you not see why people don't want it there? It's just bonkers to me that these people are given, well, social media gives them a platform, firstly, but that they actually think, yeah, I'm going to put this voice out there. You know what I mean?
Man, 100%. Like, I try to not necessarily stay away from social media, but I feel like people don't form their opinions these days. People just, it's like, oh, I need to be outraged at this because everyone else is outraged at this. I need to be, what I started doing, right? So, I don't know, Nero, I know, give me something that you're outraged by or like goes against your moral compass. Let's say like you're outraged by parking disability spots, right? So I'll be like, why? And you give me a reason. And I'm like, okay, why again? And you give me a reason. So if you're really passionate and you form the thought from yourself, you should be able to answer a why 3 times, okay? Next time someone says some outrageous opinion to you, not just like a different opinion to you, just ask them why 3 times and see if they can answer you. And I can tell you now, they won't be able to answer you because people don't form their own thoughts. People think they form their own thoughts, but they're only forming thoughts, that's being projected on them based on this, confirmation bias that you're talking about. Yeah. It is scary.
Yeah, big time, man. And it's a lot of it. There is a lot of that is manipulated by probably is it all generations? I'm going to say that, like, you'll often hear somebody tell you a story and they're saying it as fact, and it's like, no way, where did you hear that? Oh, so and so said it on Facebook. And I was like, oh, here, would you fucking stop, like, and then you go back and you say to them, oh, look, that story you were saying turned out it was false. Of course, who said it was false? Well, the journal fact check said it was false. Oh, and you trust the journal? It's like, oh, here.
Oh man, no, it's pretty bad because like I try to do as well. Like, it's like, let's say something outrageous happens or whatever, and it doesn't matter what the situation is. Maybe something I feel really passionate about. And it's like, okay, what's happened here? And the first thing people do is like, oh, I'm gonna share this all over my social media newsfeed. I like refrain from doing that with like almost anything. It's like, okay, how do I really feel about this? Okay, take like a day and like really think about it. It's like, why am I outraged about this? How does this make me feel? Like really like think about it. But because we live in such like a fast-paced world, it's like, oh well, something's happened today. or right now, and I need to like react to it right now. And it's kind of like, it's leading to our detriment, even like in terms of, you were saying that NASCAR banned the use of Confederate flags. For that one's probably like an isolated incident. Like there's been like CEOs resigning, so like they're so that a black person can take their place. There's been like ridiculous things, like TV shows being taken off like Netflix, whatever. And I was like, I'm telling you now, okay, no black person is asking for that. Okay, that is a tokenistic gesture that you think like, okay, we've done things wrong in the past, we need to fix it. No, what we're asking for is very simple, representation in media, people to stop being killed, like our qualities of life to be, to be changed, but to be improved and not be like, reflected by like the color of our skin. And just getting all this like silly tokenistic gestures. And I'm like, I know for a fact that no person's asking for that. Do you kind of get what I mean?
100% get you, yeah. And there is that crowd of people, a cohort of people on social media that when you hear of an episode of a show that's been removed based on blackface or based on something, and they're like, oh, here we go. And it's like, the protesters aren't asking for that. They not like that's and number one, the protesters aren't asking for that. Number two, if you really wanted to watch it, we live in an online age now. You can watch that episode if you're going to miss it so much. Stop with the fake controversy. Do you know what I mean? I 100% agree. Like, it's crazy.
The other one that I thought was brilliant, just when you say fake controversy, man. So the whole term, like calling someone a Karen. This whole word, right?
What?
Karen.
A Karen.
What's that? A Karen. Karen. Sorry. I thought you like CAIR. I'm like, what? Yeah.
I don't know where or who said it on Twitter, but somebody put up the screen grabbed this woman who, like her name was Karen, and she had put like that people shouldn't use the word Karen, that it is just as offensive and wrong as using the N-word. And like the amount of responses that were like, the fact that you have said N-word but said Karen tells you you're fucking wrong. Like,
absolutely brilliant. That's a brilliant response.
Just mind blown to me that someone could be like, you know what I mean? But that Karen joke is going to be gone in about 6 weeks. Do you know what I mean? Like it's an bad kind of thing, and but to compare it to something like that, I just thought, like that's where people's heads are at.
Yeah, exactly. That's where people's heads are. But it's like we were saying earlier on. People should be open to be educated. I mean, I'm sure, Femi. I'm sure, like if somebody, you're 26 years of age, and someone before you arrived in Ireland, they might have said something racially that they didn't think was racially motivated. But you're kind of saying, listen, man, that was racism there. Now, if that person reacts to you and says, well, who was it? For God's sake. Or if they act and say, Jesus, Femi, thanks for that. That's what you want. You don't want people to get defensive. But unfortunately, I think there is a lot of people that do get defensive when they're told they're wrong, as opposed to they're told, oh, geez, thanks for the heads up there. Thanks for educating me.
Yeah.
No, 100%. And you know what? Just to like further on, like, analyze that point. There's been something I've been thinking about recently, right? And I haven't fully formed my opinion on it yet. I'm still thinking about it. But it's the question I'm asking myself is, right? It's like, when do you stop being a racist? Okay. The point I'm trying to say is that, someone has, been a racist in the past or said racial things or racially abused someone. So it's like, it's like, how many times do they have to say sorry? Or, when do they get forgiven for, those past indiscretions kind of thing? Like, I still haven't, like, fully formed my opinion on it yet. But I feel like that's a huge thing because, again, so let's say, for example, Danny, you had racially abused someone in the past, either be or being ignorant, right?
Yeah.
And you said, I'm sorry. Are you still a racist? Or do you kind of get where I'm coming from?
Do you mean like how sincere is the apology, or
no? How sincere is the?
Is it that whole thing of kind of like, so somebody could in the past have made a racist remark or had an opinion that was racist, but let's say 10 years later, through a little bit less ignorance and a little bit of understanding, they realise it was wrong. So somebody can at some point in time have had a racist thought or said something racist, but that doesn't necessarily make them a racist today. Is that kind of
yeah? And the reason this whole thing kind of sparked in my head was it was around like the whole cancel culture, which irritates the hell out of me. And what was it? I think it was like I can't remember, Jimmy Fallon or one of the guys who does those TV shows in America. Yeah. And he did like blackface on Saturday Night Live like 20 years ago. And then there was outrage like a month ago, it was like, cancel Jimmy Fallon. I'm like, wait, what? Like, no. Yeah. It's like, like, it just doesn't work like, so it's like, like he did something wrong. And like, 2 decades ago, 20 years ago, okay? Yeah. And he's done lots of other things currently to disprove his past. Is he still a racist? Yeah, so maybe his is an extreme example because the timeline is quite long.
No, I think that's a perfect example. Like Femi, I'm 35. When I was 15, I was on a school trip in Italy, and at the end of the trip, we were having a fancy dress. And prior to going, me and 5 of my friends, we said, will we dress up as the Jackson 5 and get the afros? And the 4 of us did blackface, okay, at 15. And the 5th person stayed white. The purpose of us doing blackface was to emphasize the 5th person was Michael Jackson because he was white. It probably wasn't until I was 22 or 23 where I was kind of going, Jesus, was that appropriate? I said earlier on we had black students in school and Palestinians, but they didn't come in until 5th year. So when we did that, we were in 3rd year, 4th year, and we were kind of going. I was kind of going years. I never discussed it with my friends at that time, but I kind of said to me when I was reflecting on photographs, say in my early 20s, I was kind of going, Jesus, is that appropriate? It's like someone dressing up as someone in a wheelchair, and I'm like, oh, that's not really appropriate.
But it's like, how would you have known? And the reason why I'm excusing you per se is because, like, I didn't know. I always felt like, this might be wrong as such. Maybe that's a push. Like, I didn't know what blackface was until I was in like my nearly early 20s, because like I had to go off and I grew up in Ireland. Okay, you're not taught it. You might feel that it's wrong, whatever. But if you don't understand why it's wrong, you will do it. Do you kind of get? It's like I had to go off
absolutely
and research. What's a minstrel? Oh, this is what this means. Oh, this is what this means. So if your kids, if at a young age, aren't being educated on this, blackface will happen until they go off and and research it themselves. Like you hear a million and one times where people are trying to do Hairspray or whatever it is, or High School Musical, whatever the hell you call it, back as their 3rd year show, their 5th year show, out in the sticks, and everyone is doing blackface on stage, and it's condoned by the teachers and the parents alone. And again, that's more, in my opinion, it's like due to a lack of education, and it kind of leads back into what we're doing with the page. It's like we put a face to racism, and people are sharing their stories. There's no way a human being, you can't be empathetic towards it. We educate people on blackface and the minstrel movement and slavery, and really understand why it's led to the place black people are today. There's no way as a human being you won't be empathetic towards that, and you won't be actively anti-racist. Kind of get what I'm trying to say?
100%.
It's that whole thing.
Can I ask?
Sorry, I was just going to say, it's that saying, that whole thing of like, what is it? Do your best until you know better, and when you know better, do better, or something like that. I can't remember the exact phrasing, but it's not that sentiment, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
What's the, excuse my ignorance, but I'm going to be educated now, but what's the minstrel thing?
Okay, so, here we go. So the whole point of blackface and the minstrel is, so do you know, like in 1920s, so minstrel is, I'm going to botch this up, it's like a cabaret show, like a show on stage, right? And instead of, obviously black people existed at this point, but instead of getting black people to play themselves, play themselves as a character, they had white people dressed up as black people playing them, okay? And here's why certain things are wrong with it. One, they would, do blackface black, and they would, exaggerate their features. Okay, so like massive lips, massive noses, whatever, right? But even worse, okay, so minstrel shows is pretty much like going to cinema back in like the early 1900s, right? The only thing that they represented, that these people were doing blackface, and the character that they played was one of like a lazy person, a dumb person, an absolute idiot, someone who's less of a human being, okay? So if that's what, the media back then is perpetuating of black people, that it's like, one, you're not getting a black person to play themselves. Two, you're representing the only negative aspects of a black person, okay? And that, till this day, then has like, that's where all your biases are coming from. That's where like, no, it's like, oh yeah, well, I seen in that show that black person or black people are lazy idiots, whatever. So, well, I definitely want to employ one. Ew, I don't want one around me. Oh my God. And it's like, it's having all these like preconceived, opinions on someone just based on the color of their skin. Do you kind of get where I'm coming from?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's, again, I'm probably not doing full justice.
I didn't know what the minstrel thing was. Now I get it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's literally where it comes from.
I never heard of a minstrel show.
Yeah.
When you said about it, I was like, oh, it's not the sweets. Please don't touch the sweets.
No. Can't have them because they're black.
Yeah, it's one of them, I suppose. It's kind of it's I think sometimes people are ignorant first, racist second, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? I think that
yes,
they don't, like, especially in Ireland, where you have the classic saying, I was only having a crack. I was only having a laugh. And it's kind of like, yeah, but I mean, you're having a laugh at someone's expense, and it's because you don't understand. Like, you know what I mean? It's that whole thing. And I think sometimes, yeah, it's a weird one, because, as you said,
definitely that what you said there, one, ignorant, two, racist. That, I think that definitely applies to Ireland. And I think the naivety of somebody is that they're being ignorant to their opinion, and they wouldn't accept that they're racist, because they're actually ignorant to that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, sorry, go on, Femi. Sorry.
No, and also, like, just in Ireland as well, like, a lot of us, especially like our generation, like, we grew up here as well. It's like, we're also Irish. So, if we're like confronted with like a lot of these situations, we also have that innate kind of like Irish trait, where it's like, we don't want a conversation. They're only having the crack. And it kind of like then leads to us enabling these behaviors as well, where what we really should be doing is be like, listen, Danny, you shouldn't say that to me because this, and this, and this. And like, help Danny understand. But like, we're like, oh, it's grand, and leaving ourselves to be like, discriminated against, and really like, enabling behaviors that goes on to hurt us and hurt my siblings, and hurt other black people in the future, So it's kind of like also up to us as black people to be like, right, I need to be brave, and I need to like, speak up.
That's it. And it's one of the things, actually, because when I was talking to my girlfriend before, kind of, I should say fiance, she'll kill me if she listens back to this. Before we were going to sit down to record, and she was asking me, oh, who have you got on the podcast this week? And I was saying it to her, and she was like, oh, I seen that Instagram account. And she was like, one of the stories that somebody put up, they were saying that whole thing of, somebody will ask them where they're from, they'll be like, oh, Ireland, and they'll be like, where are you really from? And she's saying that resonates with her. She's from Russia, and her name's Oksana. So when she gives her name, and someone's like, oh, that's a weird name, where are you from? And she's like, Leash. And they're like, no, but like, really, where are you from? And it's those little things that people probably, again, I'd like to think it's more so ignorance than anything else, but sometimes, do you need that follow-up question? I mean, what's it matter? Does it really matter? They're here now,
exactly.
Whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like, you're like, oh, I'm only asking a harmless question. Like, one, this person probably hears it all the time, okay? And two, it's like, all right, every time I hear this question, I have to validate. So this person thinks like, definitely can't be Irish, and I have to validate that I am Irish. Do you know what I mean? Or I have to validate where I'm from. Whereas like, it's like, for example, to you, Danny, it's like, if let's say you're abroad or whatever, and the odd time someone asks you, like, where you're from or where you're really from, like, yeah, I get it, because, we're away. But if you're living in Ireland, this is where you live, and you get it all the time, you're like, here. Like, do I, like, you're just telling me that I there's no way that I can be Irish. Do you kind of get what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it, man. That's actually a good way.
It's it always happens when we have a sports star that's it's a successful sports star that's black, and you're kind of saying, or you kind of see on Twitter, oh, fair play to so and so, they've just won a gold medal, and then someone says, where are they from? And then it's like, Waterford. Ah, yeah, but where are they really from?
Yeah,
It's like they're Irish. They just won a medal for Ireland. They're from Waterford.
Literally.
And you'll see that with the athletics team now, because there's a lot of black athletes on it. And you do be cringing when a sports Twitter page is congratulating them on the gold medal or a silver medal or whatever, because you know the comments are going to go, well, they're hardly Irish. You know, and it's like it's blood pressure goes through the roof.
That whole thing now, isn't it? Like we're coming into an age where kind of, like, I think you were saying it earlier on, Mero, that whole thing of, like, in the early noughties, there was kind of, you know, a lot more people kind of immigrating into Ireland. Kind of Ireland was having a boom or whatever. There was more opportunities, that kind of thing. So now those people have settled here. They've you know, integrated into society. They've had their families here. Their kids have grown up here. Those kids are getting to an age where, you know, fucking fingers crossed we'll get a decent football team out of it. But, like, do you know what I mean?
That's the hope.
It is, but there's a few, but it's the whole thing, and you'll see surnames that aren't Murphy and that aren't O'Brien, and you're going to see people of different skin colours and people that have different backgrounds and one thing and the other, and it's brilliant. It's amazing. We should be fucking embracing it and saying, holy shit, this is class, like, you know what I mean? We're not just all, you know, I don't understand why people jump to this kind of weird fucking idea of, yeah, but, like, are they actually Irish? I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like,
what the fuck, yeah.
Why does it matter? Like, you know, it's the world we live in today. We live in such a small world, you know?
Yeah.
The world, everywhere you go, it doesn't matter, like, where you're really from or whatever anymore. It's like everyone, all society is, like, massively integrated. You know, you don't just have, you know, American people, maybe they're bad. You don't just have, like, you know, Chinese people living in China anymore. You don't just have, like, you know, Nigerian people living in Nigeria anymore. It's just like everywhere, you know, in the UK, it's all like a massive diversification of culture. And I suppose maybe it's like getting used to that and, like, realizing that, you know, that's normality now.
Yeah. And I think it's weird as well. I'm always just, like, cringing when an Irish person kind of brings up that whole thing of, like, immigrants, and I'm using air quotes there, and I'm kind of like, man, you could be walking in downtown Beijing and not hear a drop of English, but suddenly you'll just hear the Paddy, how you, boss? Like, we're everywhere. we like, I mean, fuck coronavirus, we spread way quicker. Like, I mean, just to have somebody so ignorant that they're kind of ignoring the fact that for centuries Irish people have been going all over the globe and settling and one thing and the other, just, come on, man, come on.
So, Danny, why do you think that we don't, there's a lot of, it's a minority, but it can be a vocal minority. Why don't you think they relate the two or correlate the two?
I'd like to think it's just ignorance or stupidity, but sometimes I think that's giving people too much credit.
Right.
Like, there are definitely a couple of people who are quite sinister in their thought pattern, and if you know, unfortunately, if you're not pale-skinned, freckled, and your surname isn't Murphy or O'Brien, then they're going to raise an eyebrow and wonder, you know, what is this or who is this kind of thing. And you kind of see it. You, like, the weird thing is, and we're kind of, social media definitely has its downsides, but I think in an odd way, it also shines a light on some of the people that are problematic in society, you know, like the Gemma Hardys, the John Walters, these kind of people where you're like, you know what, I think I'd rather know me racist than have them kind of with a big opinion piece in a national newspaper or whatever every week, where they're getting to spread that opinion without it being checked regularly, you know?
Yeah, and you know what, again, like, I suppose, like, it's not necessarily just people who are, like, you know, ignorant, whatever. I give you, like, a few examples. Like, we'd have, like, loads of people, like, trolling us, not necessarily trolling us, like, you know, people with fake accounts coming on, and, like, some of them are extremely articulate, and, like, I've gone and, like, done the research. Like, there's some guy who, like, slid into my DMs the other day. It's like, what you like, went out of his way to find our Instagram page, and then like find out my name, and find me on Facebook, and message me on Facebook. He was like, what you're doing is genocide. You guys, or your people coming over here, it's committing genocide on, committing genocide on like being Irish. And he was like, he went along and like, really like articulated his message or whatever. And I was like, oh, really, we are committing genocide. Like, I'm joking, but like, it doesn't, like, if someone that, someone's being really articulate, and you can see how, like, they can impress that opinion on someone else, and like other people pick up that opinion. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Because there's a few of those people. I think, I can't remember what, well, I'm using the term political party very, very fucking,
loosely.
Yeah, they're not, but like, I think it's the Irish Nationalist Party or the Irish National Party or something like that.
Irish Freedom Party and then the National Party.
Yeah, that was one of the guys who founded one of them. I can't remember which one exactly, but he subscribes to that whole Great Replacement conspiracy thing.
Yeah, Herman Kelly, is it?
Herman Kelly, yes, yeah. The
Irish Freedom Party.
And I'm like, and when you were saying that there, Femi, about kind of them messaging you and being like, it's genocide and all, I'm like, man, these people, like, fuck me. Like, they clearly do have a brain if they're able to go off and do a certain amount of research. Yeah. But the research clearly stops somewhere, and you know what I mean? It's like, man, you nearly joined all the dots. You can't just stop halfway or you end up with a fucking half-baked idea like this, and it's dangerous.
It is so dangerous, and it's scary, and I suppose that you can see how at least the formulation of like things like, the English Defence League and this, Irish Freedom Party, I can see why people buy into the ideas. So that's why we also need organizations like us and other things to like counteract that, because people, I've stopped giving like human beings credit for being like, smart or whatever. I just think that like, not necessarily everyone is an idiot, but like everyone's susceptible to having opinions that they haven't fully thought out yet.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and I'm guilty of that as well. Like, I'm an opinion on everything, expert on nothing. You know what I mean?
No, I'm the exact same.
You've matured well, though, Danny.
Has he though?
He used to always get into rows, and now he's not. He's settled down.
And I still laugh at farts in the bath. You know what I mean? I'm not that mature.
Oh man.
We were having a proper serious conversation until just now.
Would you ever get into politics, Femi?
Absolutely not. Oh, like, I'll be very honest with you. It's just like, I feel like I'm too selfish to get into politics. Like, I don't care enough. If I was to ever get into politics, it would be for my own selfish like endeavors, and that I feel is acceptable.
Even the fact that you have that maturity of thought, though, man, it says a lot about kind of your own character compared to some of the people that we do have in politics. You know what I mean? So, like,
exactly.
That's exactly what they're after, like,
But come here, man. Look, we've kept you for like more than enough time this evening. So thanks very much for.
No problem. I've really enjoyed it.
It was a great chat, Femi. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I love, like,
yeah,
I mean, just. The stuff that page is producing, man, please keep going. You and the guys are doing unbelievable work, and like we've said a couple of times tonight, that like education is so important, and that page is doing a lot to try and give people a little bit more awareness and a little bit more insight into what being Black and Irish is about. So please just keep doing it, man. It's unbelievable. Like,
thanks very much, lads. Honestly, thanks so much for having me on as well. Really enjoyed the conversation. It's been great to come on your platform.
Love it, man. Cheers. And just if people just one last plug for it, I suppose, if people want to follow you or follow the page or whatever, where can they get it all, man?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram at Black_and_Irish, and we're on Facebook as Black and Irish as well. So we're on those two pieces of media, with more coming soon.
Oh, all right then. All right. Great stuff. Well, Femi, we'll leave it there, man. Thanks again. Loved every minute of this one.
No bother, lads.
Thanks,
right.
Femi. All the best, bud.
Chat later.
Really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that. Femi's a gent.
That was good.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And fair play to him and all his mates for setting up the movement. And it was an education conversation as well, I thought. So hopefully
that's it. Like,
people will like it.
Well, that's it. Like, and it's one of those things where, it kind of people take an initiative and went out on a limb, and it's working. It's doing well. And I know Femi kind of said that over the last couple of weeks, kind of momentum has kind of dipped a little bit, and they can see that. But I think the message is out there, and even if people aren't actively engaging with it, if they're still thinking about it, then mission accomplished for those lads. So fair play to them. It's a brilliant thing.
Yeah.
If you're not following it already, lads, do jump on board and check out some of them. There's one, actually, I meant to talk to them about it. One of the stories that they shared on it when they were doing the kind of the history week on the page. Tom Molyneux, a black boxer in Ireland in the 70s and 100s, I think it was. Fucking amazing story. Just look that one up. I think a couple of years ago, and I only know this from the page, Katie Taylor, she either done like a memorial thing for him or went and visited the grave or something like that, or she unveiled like a plaque or something like that for him. But the story of Tom Molyneux, absolutely incredible story. So I'd say even just look that up for the flavour of some of the stuff that Black and Irish brings to the internet. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Deadly. Really enjoyed it, yeah. So where can you listen to it, Dan?
You can listen to it and all preceding 209 episodes of WTS Pod on WTSpod.com, or you can check us out on Apple Podcasts, on Stitcher, on Spotify, Podcast Addict, Google Podcasts, anywhere and everywhere there's a podcast. You just search WTS Pod and we'll be there waiting for you, ready to download, coming into your eardrums like two little royals. I don't know why I said that. But anyway, if you want to get us on social media, you can check out at WTS or you can check out at Mergamania, or I'm at Dan Joe Murray. But yeah, that's it for this week, lads.
Anyways, until next time.
Dear Oils.
Full heart. And lose. Rest in peace, Jack.